Blessings of Light. I'm Reverend Harrison Roy Heske, and you're about to see a lecture. When we begin the path, sometimes we do not know, for the path is windy, and we do not see the bends or the end. But as we travel the path, it becomes straight and narrow until we reach our goal. Sit back and intensify now your attention, concentration, observation into a meditative state, and open your contemplative and superconscious natures to absorb blessings.
You see, and went through the transfiguration as he went up the mountain by transformation power. You have the ability to transform your negative thoughts into positive thoughts by altering the form of them, by changing the form of them. You have the ability to change your emotions, to alter the forms of your emotions by this law of transmutation. But if you do not apply it, you do not demonstrate it, you won't have the manifestation of it, you won't have the rhythm of it, it won't be here and now, you can't identify with that, the greater will not control the lesser, you can't impact that kind of energy into that cycle of prosperity in your life, repulse the things you don't need and attract those things you do. By degree, you get the balance or polarity of that through concentration and absorption. You become the smaller creator, unified within yourself, having that cause and effect, and that is the recycling or reincarnation. And all I did was just read the laws right up the sheet. You see? One supports the other. They all support the other. When you're doing one, all the rest will come. If you take one or two of these and you start concentrating on them, you will see how all the rest come to you. Practicing these laws will magnetize all of them to you because they're part of the whole of cosmic law. You see, the law of creation. So transmutation is to change or alter form in consciousness. Okay, the law of motion is the movement of consciousness. The law of motion is the movement of consciousness. And we have the motion of running thoughts through our minds, feelings through us, actions through our physical body. We have motion. Even when you are sleeping at night, there is a motion going on some level. And when you are totally aware, you will see where you go at night and where you come back. Did you ever wonder where you went at night? I wondered that. I kept thinking, God, there must be something. I don't lose part of my life every day. Part of my life is being taken. What's happening to me at night? I want control over that. And I was thinking that. You know what happened? Satyananda came along and he says, I was thinking, you know, what happens to people at night? Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could just go 24 hours a day and you have to sleep, and, you know? I thought about that for a long, long time. I don't know if other people think about those things, but I did. I didn't want to waste my life sleeping. Because when I was younger, I used to spend 10, 12 hours a day in bed. I'd go to bed at midnight and get up at noon, you know. Gee, I lay around in bed and fading in and out. And then I got to the point, well, gee, I wasted all that time. How do I get it all back, you see? And then he says, at night you have a choice of going to darkness or light, of going to unconsciousness or consciousness. You have the choice. And he says, you put the body asleep, you put the emotions asleep, you put the mind in the drawer. He says, and then when you come back in the morning, you put the mind back on, you put the emotions back on, you put the body back on, get up and operate here. And so I had a few sleepless nights trying to do that. I got up and said, oh my God, I'm tired. Because I was physically orientated, I had to keep feeling my body. And every time I start losing my body awareness, I'd shake my body. Go put water in my face, take a cold shower, you know, go back away in bed, very still, but I still get tired. Because my mind was going, gee, my body's losing my body consciousness. And then I realized to let it go. You see, I used to say, go to sleep, foot, go to sleep, foot. I wouldn't be aware of my foot and say, is it asleep? Don't move it again. Don't wake it up. So I went through all of that for 9 months. And then one night, I went into this light. I came out of the light. And my mind started working again, my emotions started working again. It's because I said, oh, I forget. I'm not even going to do anything tonight. I've been trying all these months. I'm not having any success. I don't even know how he can do that. Maybe the next time he comes, he'll tell me. You see. And that night, I went out and went in this light. It was so beautiful. I lost the body consciousness. My emotions were calm and quiet and sleeping, and my mind was not thinking or doing anything. I was just aware of this light. And I thought I was just in this light, and then came out, and all night went on. I was in this light. There was no time or space there. And then I wondered, well, gee, no time or no space, And the next night it happened. The next night it kept on happening. And I kept seeing that, and pretty soon I'd go in and I'd go to... At first it was just a very bright light, then I started seeing beings in there. And I started seeing buildings and stuff. And one night I went in there and I saw these steps, and there was this big doorway, and all these people were going. I says, where are you going? And they says, we're going into the Temple of Wisdom to learn. I says, well, can I come along? And sure, I went in there. And when I went in, I walked up to the front and I started teaching everybody. Gee, I said, wow, I didn't know I was a teacher in the Temple of Wisdom. Golly, you don't know what you're doing at night, do you? I was going to learn, you see? Then I learned I was one of the teachers there. And I says, well, where is this place? And I started getting more conscious of that. Here, we're in this golden city of light, right here above these islands. And boy, I started telling everybody, why don't you go to the golden city at night? Come on to class, You can go in the Hall of Wisdom, you can go in the Hall of Records, you can go into the light. And I started learning things there, and I started telling people, I learned things there that I had never learned here, and I started telling these things. And that's why I've got a lot of this information that came. Because my concern as a chef was to learn about food and all that. I wasn't thinking of consciousness and all that. And I had to get a lot of it fast, so I had to do this at night too. And then I found out, there was a teacher told me one time, he says, if you really want to learn, teach. And I thought, well, that's really dumb. First you got to learn to teach anybody anything. But then I found out the more I was teaching, the more I learned, and I found out I was really the student. I had all these beautiful teachers coming to me, you see. Every one of you teach me something. Every time you come. And I became the greater student that way. And I found out I had many, many teachers, and it was beautiful. And so every student come before me, I look, there's a teacher who's going to teach me something. Something I didn't know, another point of view, another way of looking at the world. The next law is the law of vibration. The law of vibration is the degree of movement in consciousness. Vibration is the degree of movement in consciousness. Motion is the movement of consciousness, but vibration is the degree of that movement. How it is fluctuating in its movement. How it is oscillating. How it is vibrating in consciousness. Everything to the smallest atom, and the electron within the atom, the proton within that atom, that neutron within the atom, they all have their vibrations. They all have their orbiting, their notation, their rotation. They all have it by degree. By the way your mental atoms vibrate, by the way your emotional atoms vibrate, by the way your physical atoms vibrate, that will be the alternating current or the degree of movement in your consciousness. And when you have a broader movement in consciousness, a greater degree of mental movement in consciousness, you have greater vibrations of mind. When you're still in your mind, then you see the other vibrations that are going on. Like today we were up there and there was a nice calm pool, and we threw a little piece of gum into the pool, and it just started rippling out because the pool was calm. And we were watching that, and then pretty soon the raindrops come, and then there was ripples going over ripples. And all these things were mixing, because we could see each drop, and it caused its vibration upon the surface. Each thought causes its vibration upon the filament of the mind. It's vibrating out. And so when you're sending a thought to somebody, you are sending out the vibrations of that. So the degree of the movement of that will be the degree of your impaction of that thought, the ability to concentrate that thought, to be focused and absorbed there, the ability to manifest it. The next law is the law of sound. And the law of sound is the perception of vibrations in consciousness. The perception of vibrations in consciousness. You know, we talk about color, light, sound, and motion that tunes you to the cosmic ocean. That sound is the ability to perceive the vibrations of consciousness as they come to you. As you clear your mind, then you can perceive the sound of thoughts. When you clear your emotions, you can perceive the sound of emotions. They'll make an impression which will give you a form in your awareness to be aware of that, make you conscious of that by your perception of the sound of that. But if you're making so much noise, you're not going to get any perception. You see? You can either be radiating the sound or absorbing the sound. It's up to you, you know, like the sun is impacting and radiating. When you become a receiver for a particular ray, it's because you have attuned to the sound of that ray. And if you listen, you can hear the sound. Just like when you are listening to your own sound, the natum, the sound of the ringing within you. And I remember the ringing would be in my ears, and I'd say to somebody, "You hear that ringing?" When I was a kid, they'd say, "What ringing?" The ringing in your ears, you know, that high-pitched sound. Do you hear that? It sounds like the wires or something out here vibrating, you see. I was perceiving my sound. And how I got that, my grandmother gave me one of these seashells, and she said, "Listening in there until you hear the crowd playing on the beach." You see? And so I was listening. Oh, I didn't know the crowd on the beach because I'd never seen a beach. I didn't even know what kind of animal lived in that shell. But I was listening in there, and pretty soon I could hear what people were saying in the other room. Then I could hear what they were saying in there when their doors were closing in the rooms. I could hear what they were saying in the next farm in there because I was concentrating and sending my sound out or learning clear audio, and I didn't even know that's what she was teaching me because I was just a child about 6 or 7 years old, and I would hear those things. And then when she was doing the thing with the crystal ball, I was starting to see at a distance, seeing in other rooms and stuff, because perception of images is touching those images. The perception of sound is touching that sound, you see. And so the sound is the perception of the vibrations of consciousness coming to you. And so when you're perceiving those things, whether they're thoughts, other people's thoughts, I know some of you have had questions. I tell you to think the question, and that's how I answer the question, because I'm hearing the sound of your thoughts. Every word has many letters, and as the letters are formed, each letter has a vibration. And so those letters will come to you, or those words will come to you. A word is a series of letters. And in the ancient language, every letter was a number, too. You see. The next law is the law of ascension. And this is evolution from the lower to the higher states of consciousness. Ascension is the evolution from the lower to the higher states of consciousness. That's true. When we're making the ascension, we are evolving from the lower limited levels to a more higher and expanded level of being. We go from our animal nature to our human nature to our spiritualist nature, or spiritual nature, by evolution, by ascension, by ability to ascend or no longer be attached to the limitations of the lower, but to manifest in the higher realities. And so as we enter into the ascension, which we are ascending into the spiritual realm with the masters, and we are working upon our ascension so we no longer have to go through this life and death cycle, we seek to ascend into the spiritual level where we have eternal life and live and move and have our being in eternal conscious awareness, rather than losing our awareness in the darkness and light of this lifetime of becoming conscious and unconscious, you see, to becoming totally pure awareness or pure conscious awareness. And we practice that to make that ascension. And by degree, we ascend, you see. By perception of the higher, we ascend. We become magnetic to that. And so by sending forth your awareness, wherever your attention is going, that's where you're going. Whatever you're paying attention to, that's where you're going. You're pouring your life into. And so in ascension, we pay attention to higher aspects, the best that's in us. And we just keep doing the best, and the best gets better and better every day in every way. It gets better and better. We say that one, every day in every way we're getting better and better. That's the ascension plane that we're pulling upon. We're purifying ourselves. We're ascending from the diluted state to the fine state of ascension, that purity and perfection of our true identities. We're identifying with something higher. We ascend. So the ascension power is great. Any one of these laws, you can just contemplate on it and say, now how does this fit into what I'm doing in my life? See, because if it doesn't have application to what you're doing in your life, if it doesn't have application for you, you're not using the law. You see. You're not aware of it. You're not conscious of it. But whether you're conscious of it or not, all of these laws exist, and they're working right at this very moment. Every moment. We're ascending from ignorance to wisdom by taking the limitations off of our awareness and opening to understand greater and greater things. So that ascension is evolution from the lower to the higher states of consciousness. And now we have the law of one. It's all consciousness and non-consciousness is this law of one. All that's conscious and all that's not conscious is the law of one. All that's manifest and all that's unmanifest. The Mother and the Father God is one. The yin-yang is not two different things, it's one, without a second. And it has one to reflect upon the other. That's why it works, because there is a reflection there. Here is this unconditioned substance, unmanifest substance, giving of itself to manifestation. And when the manifestation is through with the substance, it gives it back to the unmanifest. And here's Mother and Father exchanging constantly. You have cells being born and cells dying. The earth goes back to the earth and the spirit goes to the spirit. You see. Everything is making this transition at all times. That's called love, that give and taking of energy. That's Mother and Father God is making love right where you're at. There's a manifest part of you and there's an unmanifest part. There's a seen part of you and there's an unseen part of you. That duality is still one. It is the law of one. In the one, without a second, we all live and move and have our being in that law of one. Everything that's in your world is in your law of one. All of your thoughts, all of your emotions, all of your ideas, all of your knowledge is only one you. Your total whole and all. Right now, you are one. You're not 2 or 3 or 10 or 1,000. You are one. Humanity is one, even though it's in many bodies, there is one humanity. You see. There may be many races of people, but there is one humanity. There is one. One. And from the one, the many. From the one, the many come. From the one lotus flower, pouring forth all of its seeds, many. You see. That one seed going down and sinking into the depth of the earth there till it comes to something solid. And then it pushes up through the mud with its sprout. It gets out there into the water, which is a little easier going. And then it gets up there and it opens up in the air. It starts unfolding leaf by leaf to the sun of reality, shining within it, giving its life. All the time it knows there's something up there. It keeps searching and searching and searching until it finds it and it unfolds and pour forth its seeds so that many, many more can come from that one. From the one, the law of one, many come. But there's only one God, and we all live and move and have our being within that one. The law of duality is the two polarities of the one consciousness. The two polarities of the one consciousness. The law of duality is the two polarities. And a lot of times we get into the dual polarities and forget they're one. And we start saying, well, I'm going to go for good and I'm going to reject everything that's bad. And we start getting good and bad. And when, oh, pardon me, really it's, those two polarities are always within the one. Mother, Father, God is in all things. The two polarities are in one. That duality aspect goes for all levels of consciousness. That duality aspect goes for your mind. There's a duality to mind. There's a duality to emotions. There's those that you want to experience and those you don't want to experience. There's thoughts that you want to experience and those that you don't want to experience. That's the duality there. And some people get caught in that. That's called the paradox. A lot of people don't see things perfect because they're caught in the paradox. You tell me one thing, I'll tell you the other. You see? And they always got the other side, and they don't see how the two are one. They always come back to the one. That duality is the two polarities in the one consciousness. The Trinity is the three aspects of consciousness. The Trinity is the three aspects of consciousness. Here we have it as red, yellow, and blue. In the Christian teachings, they have it as the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. In the Hindu teachings, is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Is, was, and always. Past, present, future. This aspect of the Trinity goes through all. Create, sustain, and transcend. We have these three entities in all aspects of consciousness. This Trinity force. The positive, the neutral, and the negative. You see. The left, center, right. The up, center, down. The Trinity. And a lot of people get caught in the duality. They don't realize the Trinity or the one. The Trinity will take you back to the one. The duality will take you back to the one. But a lot of people get bound in those things. The next law we have is called the law of the seven deaths. I'm going a little fast here because I want to get through these. The law of the seven deaths. The first death is the intersection of two phases of consciousness, creating and centering of stability. The first death is the intersection of two phases of consciousness, centering and creating of stability. Centering and creating a stability. The symbol for this is the cross, where two lines of light come together. That's form. Here's a free flow of energy. Here's another flow, but where they come together right here, there is form. So as we see the cross here, that's a representation of form, where the two lines of energy come together. That creates a death because they are no longer free to go along their way. They now have created some center of stability. They have created a form. And so the Christian cross is that form creating. If you look at the Ankh, they say from the all, the one, comes form. You notice that one? From the Ankh, the Ankh of the Egyptians. From the one comes the rays, and when the other ray comes across that, then there's a form created. That's the secret of form. That is the first death. The second death is the translation of consciousness, the rebirth to another plane of consciousness. The second death is translation of consciousness, taking that form to another level, to another expression. Translation of consciousness, or the rebirth to another plane of consciousness. The third death is the meditation of the soul consciousness. The meditation of the soul consciousness, which is the abstract essence of consciousness, is extracted. Here the bridge of consciousness between life and death. You see, there's a bridge there, the translation, where one moves, the meditation of the soul consciousness, abstract essence of consciousness is extracted. This gives the bridge between the life and death cycle. When we die to this dimension, we are being created in another dimension. When we leave one, we're created in another. I remember one time I was watching a Star Trek movie. If you ever watched Star Trek, they had a lot of these kind of principles in there. And there was one where The spacecraft was going along, and there was another one doing 32 times the speed of light, or warp 32 or something like that. And it went into a nova and come out in another opposite universe, you see. Because as this thing was nova and dying here, it was being reborn in another place. And so then they had to go through another nova that was nova in one place to be born back into this dimension. We're making these transitions between one level and another. When we die to this, you see, the womb of woman is the tomb of spirit. The tomb here is the womb of spirit, as Satyananda said. You see, when the spirit comes into the womb, it gets limited and it forgets itself as spirit. And then it must learn again its spirit, and then it dies to this dimension to go into that. So it goes into the tomb, which is the womb of the spirit. It becomes free again. It's captured in the body and then it's free from the body. But that makes that transition, the meditation of the soul in essence. See? So you've agreed to take on this body. And it's a privilege to take on this body. You see, you have come great evolutions to be able to take on this beautiful body of the earth here, to experience this time here, you see. And then you will make a transition into your spirit life when you leave this. The fourth death is the linking of consciousness. The linking of consciousness, like linking together your outer and inner self, your lower and your higher self, your higher self to your master self to your Christ self, your Christ self to your spirit self to your God self. You know, as we make the linkings together, we start linking these things together. It says the 7 deaths, but I also call this the 7 lives. This is the 7 lives or the 7 deaths. The 5th one is the death of personality. Here's the death of desire consciousness. Here, once we get this linking done, we stop desiring the things that keep us from reaching these higher states of consciousness. We have the death of desire, which when we are desireless, then we are free to accept anything at any moment. But if we have these desires going in other ways, then if something else comes, and it's like the man with his hands full saying, hand me something. He's got no room to accept it, you see. That's like a person full of desires. He got all these desires, and if something really good comes along, they can't let those go to get what's in the now, you see. So when you're desireless, you're always open in the now. It's like I'm defenseless. I'm always defenseless. If I'm defending something, then I'm taking a position. But if I'm defenseless, then I can be anywhere. I'm free. It's the wisdom of defenselessness. In that 5th death, in that death of personality, here's the eliminations of the barriers of consciousness. You realize how you're one with all things in this. When the personality stops identifying with me, mine, I, mine, me, I, and starts representing with the true I, that's the center of all creation, then it eliminates the barriers. It's no longer holding positions in any level of consciousness. It's eliminated the barriers. It becomes desireless. It becomes defenseless. It becomes open and free. The 8th death is trance consciousness. This is the body and the emotions of mind sleep the 6th. Yeah, the 6th is trance consciousness. You see, that's what I'm doing. I'm entrancing at night when I go into the light. This is the body and the emotions of the mind sleep while the soul is awakened. And I used to say, my body's going to sleep, my mind's awakened, my legs, my legs is going to sleep, my knees are going to sleep, my mind is awakening. And I'd withdraw the consciousness of the body. And I'd say my emotions are calming, my mind is awakening. Now my mind is released into my soul. And then my soul has flight. My soul can now go into the light. Until I made that transition, trancing, by transferring my consciousness from one plane to another, trancing into those states, I wasn't able to stay conscious. When I'm doing a reading, I'm entranced. When I close my eyes, or I'm no longer aware of my body, I'm no longer aware of my emotions, I'm no longer aware of my mind, but I'm totally entranced upon the other person I'm reading, so they wonder how I know all the things that I know about them. Because there's nothing here, and they're everything. That's how I know them, because they're everything. Everybody else is everything to me, and I'm nothing. And that's how you know somebody else. That's how you can totally know somebody else, is to become nothing. So the wisdom of nothingness. So an entrancing state is when you have put the body and the emotions, the mind asleep, to be one within your soul, the individual aspect of God right here, right now. And the seventh death is the illumination consciousness. And that's consciousness withdrawn from personality and established in spirit. The illumination consciousness. Consciousness withdrawn from personality and established in spirit. And Buddha sat under the Bai tree for 7 years in his lotus position, getting down to eating 1 grain of rice a day, and disassociating himself with the body and the world, to be established in spirit, to be in the Buddhic mind, the mind principle, to establish himself there in the realms of wisdom, transference of consciousness, by disassociating himself with those lower states and associating himself, establishing himself within spiritual realms. Each master did that. Jesus did that. All the great, beautiful masters of consciousness did that. Christ did that within the Christ consciousness. The Immaculate Conception of man as a God-realized being. So each great, great master was able to transcend being bound by personality, being bound by his body, being bound by his emotions, being bound by his mind, his wants, his desires, all of those things, being bound by habits and conditioned reactions, to being freed in spiritual awareness. When we go into those deeper states of meditation, we find how we become free in that. We're no longer bound.
What is that the consciousness withdrawn from
Personality and established in spirit. That's the seventh death. So that's the law of the 7 deaths, and those are the 7 deaths.
What was the third death?
The third death is the meditation of the soul. The abstract essence of consciousness is extracted. The bridge of consciousness between life and death. That's where the transition takes place in the soul. The next law is the law of love. And this is the omnipresence. Giving for giving. The law of love, the omnipresence. Giving for giving. Love is an ever-flowing force in the presence, ever giving in the consciousness of the joy of giving, seeking nothing in return, the ability of acceptance as God, as all, and all as God. Perfection and purity made manifest. See, love isn't a past thing, and love is not into the future. Love is the giving in now. The omnipresence of that, meaning omni, meaning everywhere giving. So God, in his Mother, Father, God, in their aspect of love, is giving for the joy of giving everywhere. They give you this body for the joy of giving you this body. They give you the mind for the joy of giving that. They don't say, well, gee, you got to give me something back for that. And a lot of people got this human type of love where they say, well, I'm going to love you if you love me. That isn't love. See? That's not love. Or, I love my mother, and I love my one way, and I love my sister another way, and I love my lover another way, and I love strangers another way. That's not the divine love of omnipresent love. That's a concept of human love that has fallen from the reality of the joy of giving for the joy of giving. The love of giving for the joy of giving. And we really get bound in these lower levels of what we think love is until we really see that universal love of God, that love that has no limitations. It's giving in the moment of now, right in the presence of giving for that joy of giving that love. Love in itself is the reward. Just by flowing that through you, that's the reward. By the presence, you don't have to wait for it. When you're giving love right now, boy, you're getting it right now. Because you couldn't give it unless you got it. It's a happening in your consciousness of the presence when you're in love. You ever notice somebody when they're in love gee, they don't even know what time it is, or what day it is. They don't know anybody else but that. You know, they're in love, and the other person's in love. But have you ever found somebody that's in love and the other person isn't in love? See? So you can see that love is love. And people can share love, you see. They can share by being in it together. But love is always there. It's always with you. It's constant. We're never without love. Anytime we seem to be without love, when we fall to the awareness that we're not that by paying attention to something else. But when you're paying attention to that love, that giving, that sharing of that beingness of omnipresence, then we have that great love. The next is wisdom, the omniscience. Divine intellect and purpose of involution, evolution. Wisdom, the omniscience. That means omniscience. It means the science of things everywhere, how things work everywhere. See, the wisdoms know how it's all functioning. The divine intellect and purpose of involution, evolution, and conscious application to the plan. God has a plan for our involution and evolution. We go to be the densest, most separate individual aspect to realize back our whole oneness again with God. We've already involuted, now we're evoluting the evolutionary cycle towards God. And we're unfolding, becoming more and more aware how we are God and how God is everything and how we are everything. But we had to learn individuality. And there's some got stuck there. Some of them have brought the concept all the way into the personality that they got so individualized that they don't care about anybody else. And they're going to get it for themselves. They've involuted and they're not evoluting. You see, they have drawn into their separation and they stand in the separation rather than giving that separation up to be merged again with the whole. But they have the identity of self constantly expanding in evolution. But when you lose the identity of self expanding and you think you're all by yourself, then you are bound in the limitations of whatever you think you are. And then you don't evolve any further. So a lot of people get hang-ups, so they don't evolve. They might get a traumatic experience when they're 15 years old in their emotional body, and when they're 30 years old, they're still acting like they're 15 in their emotional body because they got something that didn't evolve there, because they got stuck there and they didn't grow any further. I know some people are very intellectually oriented, but they got emotional bodies of about a 5 or 6 year old. You ever see somebody go out there and he give a... I remember one time this professor came out and he gave this great speech and everything, and as he went to move, he hit his leg and he went into a tantrum. Kicked the podium there and he was cussing and calling about his leg, and I said, gee, it looked like a little kid up there. But when he came out, he had this great beauty about him, you know, intellect and power, and he was giving this thing, but then he really blew it there. His emotional body had stopped someplace, you see, and he reacted out of that limited emotional body. His emotions didn't grow with his mind. A lot of people pay a lot of attention to another area and they don't feed the other body, and the body becomes anemic and weak, you see. You've got to feed all of your bodies of consciousness equally, you see. Take care of yourself. Open your heart. Come on. I love it. The next is truth. Omnipotence, or omnipotent as I call it. I like to say omnipotent rather than omnipotence. It means the reality of all things within all things. The power of reality. What is everything is truth where it is, on the plane of its existence or expression. What is everything is truth where it is, on the plane of its expression. I will say that again. The power of reality. What is everything is truth where it is. What is everything is truth where it is, on the plane of its expression. Thoughts are a reality in mind, but they're not a reality on the physical dimension until we have some solid thing in the physical dimension to express those thoughts. But they are true and solid on their plane of expression. And we have to understand that truth is everything. Everything is true, but it is true on its plane of expression. Understand that. That's the omnipotence of truth, the reality of truth. What is everything is true where it is at on the plane of its expression. So we have to understand truth, you have to see how everything fits together on the various planes of experience. Something may not seem true to you because you're trying to put it into some plane of expression where it does not exist. You see, we cannot take our physical body into the spiritual realm, and that's the truth. But the truth of the physical body is true in the physical dimension, and the truth of the spiritual body is true in the spiritual dimension. You see. And these dimensions are all true, and they're all one within the other. See? They're all interdependent upon one another. With one link missing, we don't have the whole truth. And if you notice when somebody's telling you something, if you've attuned to the truth, you will see they're out of rhythm. There'll be something missing in what they're saying. You'll see it'll be on truth there. It'll be not a reality there. But even that on truth is a truth on the plane of its expression. So in truth it is truth, but it's on truth because it doesn't fit into the plane the man's trying to put it in or the woman's trying to put it in. And I can see that Silky there is trying to figure that one out. Meditate about it. Okay, in just a moment. I just got one more to do. So remember your question so that you can ask me. The last one here that we're going to give you is everything returns to the source. Everything returns to the source. All returns from whence it came. As we are returning to God, thought begets thoughts, love begets love. Everything returns to the source. That's a natural law. If we take a bottle and we put 1/3 of earth and 1/3 of water and 1/3 of air and we shake that up, they may get mixed up, but if we set them down, they'll all settle. Everything will go back to its source. The earth will be drawn to the earth, the water will go to the water, and the air will go to the air. If you sit down and meditate, your emotional body will go back to it and won't be mixed up with your thoughts. Your thoughts will go back to their source. Your body will go back to its source. Each thing will go back to its level. But when we're out jiggling it all around all day long, and we're mixing our thoughts and our emotions and our actions all together, there comes a time when you got to sit down and let everything go back to its source. We're returning to God. We come from God we came, from God we go. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, spirit to spirit. You'll see. Each thing goes back to its source. The law there is a like attracts a like. You see. Each thing that is like itself will be attracted to itself. I notice when I see couples that are together, they always have some feature in common. They always have features in common. They may not be physical features, but sometimes they are. I see a man and a woman, they'll have the same nose and the same eyes, and they say, gee, I love you, I don't know what it is. They're just looking in the mirror, you see. You ever notice that one? Like attracts like. But if they don't look alike, then there's something, has to be something else that is attractive. Maybe they think alike, or they feel alike. See, a soulmate's when they have 4 or more of those levels of consciousness together. So that's our twin ray. A soulmate's when they're all together, you see. So here we are in consciousness. We're always being attracted to something that is like us. We're all returning to our source, the source of our consciousness. That attraction there, our like attracts our like. We're all attracted to God. That's because we are God experiencing Himself. And we're in this limited form of expression, becoming unfolded to the greater expression of that. Okay. Yeah, the last one, the last law is a like tracks alike. Everything returns to the source, and the last one is a like tracks alike. That's the 33. Okay. The 33rd one is a like tracks alike. I was putting it with everything returns to the source. Question? What was your question?
Yeah, my question was, okay, So everything has a reality on its level. So sometimes when you see people being unhappy, it is because maybe
They don't see the truth of where things are.
right. Let's say they make a fiction of what a thing is. Like they're afraid that this is happening. I think it's really happening, but it's not. It's not in their
Right.
action. That would be
Right.
an example of that.
Right.